The Second Amendment should never be an afterthought. It should reside at the forefront of our minds as we craft, pass, and sign laws. Our state has some of the best protections for gun owners in the United States, and today we strengthen those rights guaranteed by our country's most revered founding document. So today, our generation reiterates the desire for this fundamental right for our own reasons. While we still guard against tyranny, America today cherishes this right so that people who follow the rules can protect themselves and their families from those who don't follow the rules.
Both sides of the gun control discussion have eyes squarely fixed on Georgia today as what is called the most comprehensive pro-gun bill in state history goes into effect. One side trumpets the law as giving added protection to those who have played by the rules. Another side calls it a recipe for disaster with guns being carried in places like bars and churches. First up, let's get a reaction from the ground level. On the phone from GeorgiaCarry.org, the Executive Director, Jerry Henry. Mr. Henry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, it is a day that you and your supporters are celebrating that it has finally got into effect. But if you would please address for us for a moment those concerns from the people who have been saying that this is going to be more dangerous than it is going to be protective for the citizens of Georgia.
Well, I don't know exactly what all they're saying about that, but I can tell you that this is our, we've been in business 7 years. This is our third good gun bill, and the same emotional pleas have been made after every one of them. You know, people are going to get killed. People are going to, shouldn't have this, shouldn't have that. You can already carry in bars in the state of Georgia if you have the permission of the owner. The only thing they did was make it private property.
I think that is exactly what you pointed to. I believe that's what a number of people are saying. So what you have seen in crafting this and being part of this and being here as it is going into law, you haven't seen anything, and I would imagine we haven't seen a whole lot of stories or anything that seems to foster the fact that Georgia is going to be more dangerous now.
And you're not going to. That happens every time. You're not going to. The only thing you're going to see that's noticeable is the crime rate will continue to decrease.
What has been the reaction, first of all, from the people around the state? Because a lot of people are watching us around the world as well, and they're going to wonder, has the state of Georgia been completely behind this or the majority-wise behind this?
Well, I don't know what the whole state says, but I can tell you that of all the people that voted for this bill, there hasn't been a single person voted out of office simply for that vote. There have been a couple of people who lost their jobs for another vote, but not for voting for the gun bill. So I don't think that's a big problem for anybody except the gun prohibition.
Was there any part of this bill that you wanted to get in? Was there something else? Was there additions to this that you wanted to see as part of this bill that did not come in? Or is this pretty much the way HB 60 is written, exactly as you and your group would have wanted?
Well, there were a couple of things that we would like to have. Number one, we wanted campus carry, which we did not get. And the other thing we wanted was we wanted churches to be treated totally as private property. Right now it's an opt-in. As the church doesn't opt in, it's still against the law for you to carry a firearm in church. We think that the state should get out of the church's business and should allow the state to handle their business.
Do you think that you, or this rule rather, HB 60, will be a template for other states around the nation?
I'm not sure whether it will or not. We certainly have no problem with that. We're certainly willing to help anybody that wants to discuss how we've done it and what we've done, etc. But whether it becomes a template or not, I don't know.
All right. Well, Mr. Henry, thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes. We wanted to get your reaction as we start the law in Georgia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Now let's go to Allison Anderman. She is the staff attorney for the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. And let's also welcome in via Skype Press Secretary for Responsible Citizens of California, the group that favors being able to carry guns almost anywhere, Yih-Chau Chang. Want to thank you both for joining us here on Midpoint today and being part of the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
I do want to point out that from the side of those who are opposing the law, we had a very, very difficult time getting many groups to come on the show to talk about it. For whatever reason, they simply did not want to be here. So in seeing as we're going there, Allison, I'm going to give you the first shot at all this here, because the law is now in effect. As you hear, there are people who are very happy that it's here. They say maybe they even wanted more, but there are many people who are in favor of this law who say, it is just a knee-jerk reaction. Don't worry, it is not nearly as bad as you think, and it will be good for crime prevention. Just your, please, initial reaction as it goes into law today.
You're cutting out a little bit, but thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to respond to those points. The first one I'd like to address is that 70% of Georgians actually opposed this law in one aspect of it or another. So it is not true to say that Georgians want this law. And in fact, one thing that I thought when I first heard about this law, I'm a mother and I have 2 small children at home. And the first thing I thought about, I didn't think about politics. I didn't think about Georgia's laws. I just thought about the mom who is going to take her kids to story time at the public library. And if a man walks in carrying a loaded semi-automatic weapon, she's not going to know whether or not this is the start of the next Sandy Hook or not. And I just felt really sad for her. But the bottom line is that guns in more public places is not a good thing for society. We know that guns do not make us safer, because if they did, the United States would be the safest country in the world by far, but we're not. In fact, when it comes to gun violence, we are one of the least safe countries in the world, and women in particular are particularly unsafe in the United States because of gun violence.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there for a moment because you've just brought up a couple of great points, and I want to throw this now to Yih-Chau Chang. Mr. Chang, if you would respond to some of this. She makes some very good points, because if guns made us safer, we'd be the safest country in the world, and we aren't. It certainly is something that's up for discussion.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on this program, and I think as far as us being the safest country in the world, there's some valid points to be raised about that. I think when we're talking about guns and guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens, if you take a look at the FBI's uniform crime reports, they've been published year after year, showing a drop in the violent crime rate, not just gun crime, but rather violent crime. Okay, so if you want to take a look at the effect that guns have in the hands of law-abiding citizens in society, you might want to take a look to see the overall big picture, not just gun crime, but rather violent crime. And the FBI UCR reports, Uniform Crime Reports, clearly demonstrate that we have a drop year after year as gun rights expand all across the entire United States. So if you take a look at those types of big picture statistics, you'll realize that guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens actually do serve to decrease violent crime.
Okay, is it not, and I only have a couple of minutes left, a couple of things real quick I want to get to. Allison, he brings up a point, in the hands of responsible, legal gun owners. That seems to be the key that a lot of people are discussing here.
Actually, this new Georgia law puts guns into the hands or allows criminals to utilize this law like never before. And one very troubling aspect of this law is the fact that felons now can shoot and kill a person and claim the stand your ground defense and be immune from prosecution. And so this law is actually making criminals more likely to, or more able to get away with gun violence. And another thing that's important about this law is that it's in Georgia. And now there are going to be more guns in public places where Georgia does not require background checks for purchases between private sellers.
Okay.
And that means, can I just finish?
Very quickly, 10 seconds.
Prohibited people are more likely to get guns, and there is no way to know whether or not they are carrying guns into public places where our children are.
Yih-Chau, your response, please. We have about 40 seconds.
Sure. So, I think the characterization of the stand your ground laws, first of all, is could probably use a little bit more accurate elaboration. The Washington Post yesterday actually published a great article about the nature of and the truth about stand your ground laws, which actually don't reflect many of the aspects of the law that my opponent is basically claiming. At this point, I'd also like to say that, in Georgia, as in all places in the United States,
15 seconds.
These guns everywhere laws, as the gun control advocates like to claim, criminals are already carrying guns. There are already guns everywhere. They're just not in the hands of the law-abiding citizens. Now, law-abiding citizens have the ability to basically defend themselves when encountering these types of violent criminals or carrying guns outside the law.
I am sorry that we are so short on time. I'd like to have you both back again because this is a discussion that needs a tremendous amount more time to talk about. Again, I thank you both. Yih-Chau Chang, thank you. And Allison Anderman, thank you for being the only person on the anti-gun side brave enough to come on the show and discuss your opinions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And we do want to point out, we asked dozens of the various popular anti-gun groups to appear on the show. They refused or just didn't bother to get back to us. Right here on Midpoint, where we question everything.